Hopes for democracy in Myanmar are well and truly dashed. The military coup in February this year dismantled the democratic government that had been installed. And now an icon of the country's struggle for democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi, who won those elections, has been sent to jail. The 76-year-old spent over a decade under house arrest. She was released in 2010. And then in Myanmar's 2015 elections, her party, the National League for Democracy, scooped victory. But now she's once more under siege. Let's unpack the situation in Myanmar with Roelf Meyer. He was instrumental in crafting our constitution here in South Africa as part of our country's negotiated transition to democracy. But he's director now of the In Transformation Initiative. He's worked as an advisor to Suu Kyi's government. Mr. Meyer, thanks so much for your time. I know that you've met with Suu Kyi on a number of occasions, but she's not allowed to speak in public at the moment. Through your networks, do you know how she is, in what conditions she is being held and what she's saying?
Unfortunately, there's very little information about her whereabouts at the moment. She was, for the last few weeks, maybe last few months, held in her private home in Naypyidaw, the capital of Myanmar. But I suppose she's now being transferred to some other prison environment. But nobody knows. The only people that have had access to her recently was lawyers, and unfortunately very little information that went out. So personally, I had no contact with her since the 1st of February when the coup was launched by the military, and that is unfortunately the current situation still.
How concerned are you for her safety? This is a woman who was held under house arrest for many years. She seems to have survived so much. Do you think that she's perhaps in more danger now than she ever has been before?
It's difficult to say. I think what the military's move so far was to keep her out of politics, to put her behind closed doors so that she could not campaign and could not take the lead in terms of the resistance against the coup. And obviously, by imprisoning her now, which is really a fake process that was followed, totally intransparent, no information available, it was behind closed doors, everything. But by imprisoning her now, they actually prevent her from participating in future electoral politics. And I think that was the big aim, because they all know that she is still the most popular person. In Myanmar, I observed it myself on more than one occasion, how popular she actually is. And that won't go away. And therefore, I think the military is making a big mistake. They will just get more resistance as a result of this imprisonment.
Why has this fledgling democracy failed, and do you see any hope of reviving it?
I think we must keep in mind, for decades it was military rule, and then they made certain concessions by 2012 to allow a certain form of democracy developing, but it was never a full democracy. It was half-half. On the one side, the civilian government led by Aung San Suu Kyi, and on the other side, the military government led by the commanding officer. And that is still the situation that prevailed up to the point of the 1st of February. So it was two governments in parallel with each other, each with its own sovereignty on certain portions of the authority of the country. And so it was a failed exercise in democratization. I think Aung San Suu Kyi had it in mind that after the elections of November last year, she would actually fulfill the promise of full democratization, changing the constitution to make that happen. And probably the military knew that, and that is why they prevented her from continuing and taking office after the elections of November last year.
You are involved, and you are a veteran of difficult negotiations. I'm thinking back to negotiating a peaceful transition to democracy here in South Africa. You were also very involved in crafting our constitution. And of course, on Friday, it is the 25th anniversary of our constitution. I wonder how you feel about our constitution today. It has been challenged a lot. It's been criticized a lot. Do you think it's ultimately served our democracy and withstood the challenges?
I absolutely think so. I think that's the one thing that all South Africans still remain proud of. And despite the fact that it's been challenged on more than one occasion, it has actually lived up to the expectation in every respect. It served us well in times of difficulties, and I'm talking here about the previous administration. And I think it will keep on doing so because it's a constitution that was essentially drafted by the people. We must remember the constitution of 1996, which was signed by President Mandela on the 10th of December that year, was a monumental task of the people of South Africa. It was not a constitution that was drafted by a few. It was the Constitutional Assembly that drafted it at the mandate of the people who elected them into office on the 27th of April 1994. And I think for that reason we can be proud and say that this constitution is living up to its expectation. It remains a benchmark in the world. And we as South Africans, as government in particular, have to make sure that we continue living up to the expectations of that constitution. There are many challenges, undoubtedly. But it's the imperatives of the Constitution that provide us with the guidance on how we should actually challenge or take up these challenges and make sure that we deliver on the expectations of the people.
Thank you so much, Roelf Meyer. He has been involved in trying to bring peace to Myanmar. And of course, he was involved in crafting our Constitution.